In this third part, we'll begin to explore the spiritual battle behind perfectionism. Are you ready? Welcome back to Life as God Intended. In this three-part series on perfectionism, we're diving deep to understand God's character as the motivating force for all that we do. And in this third part, we'll begin to explore the spiritual battle behind perfectionism. Are you ready? It's control. Control isn't just about micromanaging, it's about where we place our trust. And today we'll uncover the spiritual sources influencing control and why true freedom comes from living surrendered to Christ. You are a surrendered one. Whether or not you're living that way is another question. And so perfectionism is a matter of control. Let me share a story from my counseling experiences. And this is just one of many. I spoke with a man who was battling addiction. And he told me that his drinking gave him a feeling of control. And I might want to just stop right there and say there are many types of addictive tendencies, and they're not limited to alcohol. All sin is addictive in some matter. And so he was feeling this control, and even though he knew it was destroying his life, he repetitively did it. His wife, meanwhile, was over-controlling at home, trying to manage the chaos that obviously it created. Both were locked in a cycle of striving, trying to control what only God could sort out. This dynamic illustrates an issue we often see in relationships. It's called codependency. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Perfectionism is an aspect of you being codependent. Codependency occurs when two or more people fulfill each other's needs in a way that perpetrates dysfunction. It's an unhealthy attachment where one person becomes dependent on another to create their own self-worth, their own sense of self-worth, while the other feels the need to fix or control the situation. Instead of being interdependent, where each person draws their sense of identity and worth from Christ, a codependent person looks to someone else to fill a void only God can fill. This can lead to a spiral of unhealthy control, unmet expectations, and deep relational strain. Romans 6:20 reminds us that without Christ, we're slaves to sin. We see this enslavement in cycles of addiction, over-control, and codependency. But here's the good news. You're a Christian. And in Colossians 1:13, it declares that we've been delivered from the power of darkness. Only Christ can break these destructive patterns and bring true freedom. You are surrendered to Christ. You're just not acting like it. Letting go of control feels counterintuitive, but it's the path to peace. John 15, verses 4 and 5 reminds us to abide in me, for without me you can do nothing, Jesus said. Think of a bird resting on a branch. Its trust isn't in the branch, but in its reality to fly. When we trust Christ, we find peace beyond our circumstances. Reflect on areas where you're clinging to control. Let me give you some practical examples the workplace responsibilities that you're charged with. You insist on completing all tasks yourself because you don't trust others to meet your standards. Example, you refuse to delegate parts of a team project even when it leaves you overwhelmed. In the area of parenting, you micromanage your child's schedule, hobbies, and decisions to ensure they succeed or avoid failure. That's because you don't want them to be an example or a reflection of you because you think when they fail that you've been a failure. So correcting your child's homework for them because you don't want them to lose points is not only hindering them, but it's cheating. Number 3, relationships. You try to control how others behave or respond to you, believing that their actions reflect on your worth. An example, constantly offering unsolicited advice to your spouse or friend, thinking they won't mind you helping them make the right choices because without their input, you'll make the wrong one. What about spiritual practices? Do you approach Bible reading, prayer, and church involvement with a performance mindset, believing you need to check all the boxes to stay in God's favor? Feeling anxious if you miss a devotional time, convinced it means you're failing spiritually? What about in the area of health and wellness? Are you obsessed over your diet, exercise, or appearance to maintain a sense of control over your body or self-image? Do you feel guilt or shame after eating something unhealthy as though it defines your worth? What about future planning? Do you feel the need to plan every detail of your future to avoid uncertainty? Spending hours over researching decisions like buying a car or planning a vacation out of fear of making the wrong choice. A final example, what about conflict resolution? Do you avoid conflict? Try to avoid them entirely? Or try to manipulate outcomes to ensure that there's no tension? Conflicts do arise. Do you agree to things that you don't want to just to keep the peace, to keep others happy, fearing their disapproval? You know, the old saying, when mama ain't happy, there ain't nobody happy. That's a statement of codependency. Let me encourage you to reflect on this perfectionistic codependency this week. What's one situation in your life where you feel anxious or overwhelmed when things don't go your way? A second, you might want to write these down, or you can always stop the tape and listen to it again. Is there a specific area where you find it hard to trust others or even God with the outcome? And finally, what would it look like for you to release control in a certain area of your life that you just haven't been able to let go of and trust God to work instead of striving to make the outcome turn out the way you want it? In conclusion, in part 4, we'll explore practical steps to live in freedom from codependency and perfectionism. You don't want to miss it. Thank you for joining me today on Life as God Intended. And if this message spoke to your heart, share it with someone who needs encouragement. And be sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already, so that we can stay connected in this journey. And until next time, may you rest in God's grace and walk in freedom as He intends for you.